You aren't being paranoid. You're being hunted. You feel it. That colleague who remembers every mistake you've made, but forgets every time they promised to help. The manager who smiles at you in meetings, but undermines you in hallways. The executive who fires their mentor without blinking and sleeps fine that night. You think something is wrong with them. You're right. But here's what most people don't understand. In the corporate world, the dark triad isn't a disorder. It's a promotion strategy. These aren't broken people. They're people playing a game you don't know the rules to. And if you don't know the rules they're playing by, you've already lost. I'm not diagnosing anyone here. I'm identifying behavioral patterns. These are specific ways of operating in a corporate environment. If you recognize these patterns in someone, you'll know exactly how they work. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how they hunt, how they identify targets, how they extract what they need from you, and most importantly, how to become so strategically expensive to attack that they move on to easier prey. The dark triad isn't 3 separate problems. It's 3 specific survival mechanisms. And once you know what to look for, you'll see them everywhere. Let me paint you a picture. You're in a company meeting. Your team has just landed a major client. It was a 3-month project. You did the technical work. Your colleague handled logistics. Your manager coordinated everything behind the scenes. But when it comes time to present the win, your manager tells the story like this. I saw the opportunity. I assembled the right team. I guided the strategy. And here we are. Notice what happened? The work disappeared. Only the narrative remained. That's the narcissist. They don't do the work. They manage the perception of the work. Here's the psychological mechanism. A narcissist's entire identity is built on being exceptional, but they can't actually do exceptional things at scale, so they do the next best thing. They become exceptional at telling the story of exceptional things. They walk into a meeting where you've solved a problem, and they reframe it as their insight. They take credit for wins they weren't part of. They distance themselves from failures they created. And because they tell the story first, and they tell it with such confidence, people believe them. But here's the dangerous part. They're not consciously evil. They genuinely believe their own narrative. They've rewritten history in their mind so completely that they don't see the theft. They see themselves as the hero. That's what makes them lethal. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to survive. And you happen to be in the way of their story. Now, imagine a different person. Not flashy, not loud, just strategic. You're sitting with this colleague. They seem interested in your life. They ask about your goals, your struggles, your ambitions. You think you're making a friend. You're actually being cataloged. 6 months later, when you're up for promotion, suddenly there's a rumor, not about your work, about something personal you mentioned in confidence. The rumor isn't even true, but it's close enough to the truth to be damaging, and it came from nowhere. Or so it seems. That's the Machiavellian. They play a long game of alliances and favors that you don't even know you're a part of. The psychology here is cold calculation. A Machiavellian doesn't need to feel connected to you. They just need to understand you. They need to know what you want, what you fear, what you'll sacrifice. And then they use that information like a chess player uses the board. They're not trying to beat you today. They're positioning for a move 3 steps from now. And by the time you realize what happened, you're already on the losing side. The most dangerous part, they're usually likable because they've studied what makes people like them. They know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how much vulnerability to show. But it's all performance. There's no genuine connection, just strategic positioning. Then there's the third one, And this is where it gets truly dangerous. You're having a conversation with your boss. They've known you for 5 years. You mentored them when they started. You defended them in meetings. You believed in them. They're now telling you they're letting you go. You ask why? The reasons don't make sense. You've done good work. You've hit your numbers. But they don't hesitate. They don't feel conflicted. They look you in the eye and execute the decision like they're ordering coffee. Later, you learn they felt nothing. No guilt, no second thoughts, no "this is hard but necessary," just done. That's the psychopath pattern. And I'm not diagnosing anyone here. I'm identifying a specific behavioral pattern. Watch for someone who can make a difficult decision about a friend or mentor without visible conflict, without guilt, without hesitation. That's the pattern. The psychology is different from the other two. A psychopath doesn't have the emotional architecture for guilt. They can commit an act that would destroy a normal person's conscience, and they sleep fine because there's nothing to feel. They're not evil in a cartoon sense. They're just missing a piece. The piece that makes you hesitate before hurting someone. The piece that makes you feel bad after. And in a corporate environment where decisions are made quickly and consequences are abstract, that missing piece becomes an advantage. Here's what I've learned. Most people think the dark triad is rare. It's not. Studies suggest roughly 10% of people in high-power positions have at least one dark triad trait. That's not an anomaly. That's a trend. And the reason is simple. The corporate system rewards these traits. In a normal human interaction, narcissism would be called out. Manipulation would be seen as untrustworthy. Lack of empathy would make you an outcast. But in a corporate structure where you're evaluated on results, not character, where you can hide behind layers of bureaucracy, where there's no real accountability for how you treat people, suddenly these traits become survival mechanisms. They become superpowers. You need to understand something. Dark triad people aren't randomly cruel. They're hunters, and they have a system. It starts with interest. They pull you aside. They ask about your goals, your insecurities, your ambitions. And because they're good at this, you feel seen. You feel understood. What's actually happening is vulnerability mining. They're building a map of where you're soft, where you can be influenced, where you can be threatened. Then they do something clever. They share a secret with you, something that seems deeply personal, something that makes you feel like you're inside their inner circle. But here's the thing. That secret isn't real. Or it's real, but it's calculated. They're showing you vulnerability in a very controlled way, just enough to make you feel special, just enough to make you reciprocate. So you share something real, something actually vulnerable. And the moment you do, the dynamic shifts. You've just given them leverage. I've watched this happen in government offices, corporate boardrooms, everywhere. A dark triad person spends months building trust, and then, at exactly the right moment, they use what you've told them. Not always aggressively. Sometimes it's just a casual mention in a meeting. Oh, Nicolette mentioned they struggle with public speaking, so maybe they shouldn't lead the client presentation. Boom, you're out. And it looks like a reasonable business decision. In a dark triad environment, your personal life is a liability, not because there's anything wrong with having a personal life, but because these people will use it. Keep it off the balance sheet. Keep your vulnerabilities private. Keep your ambitions quiet until their accomplishments.
Now here's the hard truth. You can't make these people less predatory, but you can make yourself a less attractive target. The first protocol is the information diet. Here's a scenario. You're in a one-on-one with your manager. They ask how things are going. They ask about your weekend. They ask about your family. It feels like they care. They don't. They're gathering intelligence. You give them facts, nothing more. Things are going well. I finished the project on time and under budget. I'm focused on the next deliverable. Notice what's missing. No opinions, no feelings, no personal details, no bonding, just cold data. A dark triad person is looking for emotional content. Emotions reveal weakness. Emotions reveal what they can manipulate. But facts are useless to them. You can't weaponize a deadline. You can't manipulate a completed task. When you communicate using only cold data, you become boring. And boring people aren't interesting targets. They move on to someone more emotionally available. If you share openly, if you bond, if you show vulnerability, you're giving them a map. They'll use it. Maybe not today, but eventually.
But here's where most people slip up. They think keeping quiet protects them. It doesn't. The second protocol flips that. It's called the paper trail of sanity. Picture this. Your manager tells you something in a meeting, a decision, a promise, a plan. It sounds good. You leave the meeting feeling confident. 2 weeks later, they deny ever saying it, and suddenly it's your word against theirs. After every important conversation, you send an email, not confrontational, just documenting. Hi, Wendy, thanks for the meeting today. Just to confirm our discussion, we agreed that X would happen by date and I would handle Y. I'll follow up by date to confirm next steps. Let me know if I misunderstood anything. A Machiavellian's power comes from ambiguity, from plausible deniability. They can tell you one thing, tell someone else another, and claim they never said anything concrete. But an email is evidence. It forces them to either confirm or deny on record. And most importantly, it shifts the risk. If they deny, they have to explain why. If they don't respond, your version stands as the documented record. A dark triad person will be more careful around someone who documents everything, because documentation removes their favorite weapon, ambiguity. If there's no paper trail, it's your word against theirs, and they're better at lying than you are. By now, they're frustrated. They can't get emotional leverage from you. They can't find contradictions in your paper trail, so they escalate. They bring aggression. They bring pressure. And this is where the mirror defense becomes your superpower. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Your manager comes in hot, intense, aggressive. They're playing power games. They want you to match that energy, to get emotional, to lose your cool. Watch what you do instead. You match their professional intensity, but keep your emotional temperature neutral. They say, "This is unacceptable. We need this done by Friday." You say, "Understood. What are the priorities so I can allocate resources effectively?" Notice the difference? You're meeting their intensity with strategy, not emotion. You're asking clarifying questions, you're staying calm, you're not triggering. A dark triad person feeds on emotional reactions, anger, fear, defensiveness. These are signals that you're threatened, and a predator can work with threat. But strategic calm, that's a mirror. You're reflecting their professional intensity back at them without the emotional attachment. You're showing them that their power play doesn't land. Over time, they lose interest because you're not giving them what they're hunting for, an emotional reaction that confirms they have power over you. If you react emotionally, you confirm their power. You become a more interesting target. You become worth hunting. The goal isn't to become them. The goal is to be so strategically expensive to attack that they move on to easier prey. A dark triad person is a predator, but they're a rational predator. They calculate cost-benefit. Is this person worth the effort? Or is there an easier target? Make yourself the harder target. That's it. Now here's the reality. Sometimes you do everything right. You keep quiet. You document, you stay calm, and it still isn't enough. They keep coming. They keep hunting. That's when you need to escalate. Hard. Here's what that moment looks like. You finally see the pattern. You realize you're being hunted. They've already gotten inside your defenses. They're already weaponizing what you've told them. Normal protocols aren't enough anymore. Now you escalate. You escalate documentation. Every conversation is followed by an email. Every promise is confirmed in writing. Every decision is recorded. You also start copying HR or your skip-level manager on communications where appropriate. Hi, Irene. Copying Melanie from HR on this email to ensure transparency on our project timeline and deliverables. When a dark triad person realizes they're being documented and their actions are on record, they shift tactics. Suddenly, they become very careful, very professional, very by the book, because they know the moment this escalates, their manipulation becomes visible, and visibility is their enemy. If you don't escalate, they'll keep hunting. They'll extract what they need and move on. You'll be left damaged. Here's what I need you to understand. The dark triad isn't going away. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. For every corporate structure that rewards results over character, there will be people who exploit that structure. For every environment where there's no real accountability for how you treat people, there will be predators. So the question isn't, how do I avoid them? The answer is, you don't. You'll encounter them. You'll work with them. Some of them will be your bosses. The question is, how do I make myself a difficult target? And the answer is cold, strategic, unglamorous. Keep your vulnerabilities private. Document everything. Match intensity without emotion. Be useful. Be reliable. Be boring. Make the cost of attacking you higher than the benefit. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to survive. And survival in a dark triad environment is about being less interesting than the next person. But here's what separates people who just survive from people who actually climb, because knowing not just how to defend yourself, but understanding the exact playbook they use to move up, because once you see the pattern, you can outmaneuver it. If this video hit home, subscribe, because in the next one, I'm decoding the exact moves they use to climb the ladder and how to block every single one without them knowing you did it. And right now, which of these three, the image architect, the Grandmaster, or the executioner, have you encountered? Tell your story in the comments. Change the names to protect yourself. I want to hear how these patterns showed up in your career and what your move was.